Imagine this. You are standing before a locked door, not just any door, but one that leads to a profound revelation about human desire, power, and the very fabric of social interaction. For years, perhaps a lifetime, you've chased, you've yearned, you've sought approval, affection, or recognition from others. You've molded yourself, presented your best self, perhaps even compromised your true self, all in the hope of attaining that elusive validation. You've believed, as most do, that being accessible, agreeable, and ever-present is the path to connection, to love, to success. You've been taught, subtly and overtly, that being available makes you desirable. But what if this is a lie? What if the very act of constant pursuit, of perpetual availability, is precisely what renders you less desirable, less respected, less truly powerful? This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding a fundamental, often unsettling truth of human psychology that few dare to articulate. It's about a paradox so deep it challenges the very foundations of how we perceive attraction, influence, and personal value. Consider the object of obsession. Why is it that the unattainable jewel glitters more brightly? The forbidden fruit tastes sweeter. The enigmatic stranger captivates more deeply than the readily available. Is it merely a trick of the mind, a fleeting illusion? Or is there something more ancient, more primal, embedded in our psyche that responds not to abundance, but to scarcity? Not to ease, but to challenge? Not to the offered hand, but to the distant, confident posture? Think of the person who, despite all your efforts, remains just beyond your grasp. The one whose attention you crave, whose validation you seek, yet who seems unburdened by your pursuit. Doesn't their indifference, their self-possession, their sheer unavailability somehow amplify their allure? Doesn't it ignite a spark within you, a drive to understand, to conquer, to possess, that mere accessibility could never hope to achieve? Why does the human heart so often desire what it cannot easily have, and conversely, grow cold towards what is freely given, consistently present, and utterly without challenge? This isn't about cold manipulation, but about a deep, uncomfortable truth. The human mind often assigns greater value to that which is difficult to acquire. It's a mechanism far older than modern society, rooted in the very struggle for survival, where effort equated to reward and scarcity signaled worth. When you make yourself endlessly available, you inadvertently signal abundance, and in the strange calculus of human perception, abundance can diminish perceived value. Are you unknowingly devaluing yourself in the eyes of others by always being within reach? By always saying yes? Always being there, always accommodating? What hidden forces are at play when someone transitions from being merely present to truly unattainable in the eyes of another? What seismic shift occurs in the landscape of desire and respect when one simply stops chasing, stops needing, stops being defined by the gaze of others? And what radical transformation awaits those who dare to embrace this truth? What power lies dormant, waiting to be unleashed when you finally understand the profound impact of becoming truly, deeply, and unapologetically unattainable? The answer lies not in aloofness, but in a profound self-mastery that redefines your entire social gravity. The root of this paradox, this maddening inversion of effort and reward, is not found in the tactics of courtship or the strategies of social climbing. It lies in a far deeper, more ancient place, the fundamental architecture of human consciousness itself. To understand why unattainability is so potent, you must first understand the hidden prison you have been conditioned to inhabit. This prison has no visible bars and no armed guards. Its walls are built from your own neurology, its locks forged from your deepest existential fears. At its core, the problem is one of outsourced identity. From a young age, You're taught to look outside yourself for a reflection of who you are. The smiling approval of a parent, the acceptance of a peer group, the praise of a teacher. These become the mirrors in which you first learn to see yourself. This is the great human dependency. As the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre observed, we often come to understand ourselves not through introspection, but through the gaze of the other. We allow their perception to become our reality. Your sense of self becomes a fragile construct, pieced together from the fleeting opinions and reactions of those around you. Being attainable is the natural consequence of this state. You make yourself available, agreeable, and easy to please, because you are, in a very real sense, auditioning for a role in someone else's life, hoping their validation will finally make you feel whole. This is where the philosophical currents run deep and dark. Arthur Schopenhauer would argue that this constant seeking is driven by the will, a blind, insatiable, and ultimately futile striving that is the very essence of life. The will desires, and desire, for Schopenhauer, is a state of suffering. When you desperately seek another's approval, you are in the grip of this ravenous will. You believe that attaining the object of your desire, that person's affection, that group's acceptance, will bring you peace. But it is a lie. The moment you attain it, its value diminishes because the will is not interested in possession. It is interested only in the striving. The unattained, therefore, holds a perpetual power. It keeps the will in its most energized, most focused state, making the object of that striving seem like the source of all possible happiness. The readily available person offers no struggle, no tension for the will to grapple with, and so it quickly grows bored and seeks a new, more distant peak to conquer. Friedrich Nietzsche would take this a step further, reframing the will not as a source of suffering, but as the will to power. For Nietzsche, the fundamental drive of all living things is not merely to exist, but to expand, to overcome, to grow, to exert its strength upon the world. When you encounter a person who is self-possessed, who does not need your validation, who operates from a core of internal strength, you are witnessing a pure manifestation of the will to power. They are not trying to draw power from you. They are generating it themselves. Their unattainability is not a strategy. It is a byproduct of their self-mastery. This creates an irresistible psychic gravity. You are drawn to them not just out of desire, but out of a deep, instinctual respect for their power. Your own will to power recognizes a formidable force, and it yearns to test itself against it, to align with it, or to be recognized by it. The person who is constantly available, however, signals the opposite: a deficit of power, a need to be filled by an external source. They are asking to be conquered, not engaged with as an equal. This internal drama is what psychologist Carl Jung sought to map with his concepts of the persona and the shadow. The persona is the polished mask you present to the world, the agreeable, compliant, attainable self. It is a necessary tool for social navigation, but for many, it becomes their entire identity. Your shadow, meanwhile, contains all the parts of yourself you have repressed because they were deemed unacceptable. Your ambition, your righteous anger, your capacity for independence, your ability to say no without guilt. The desperate need for external validation is the cry of a dominant persona that has starved the shadow. To become unattainable is to begin the terrifying but necessary work of integrating that shadow. It means acknowledging the part of you that does not require universal approval, the part that can stand alone and find its own worth. This integration creates a sense of wholeness, of authentic self-possession that is profoundly magnetic. People are not drawn to your perfection, they are drawn to your completeness. So, the hidden problem is this: you have been taught to live on the surface, to perform a role, to seek your reflection in fractured mirrors held up by others. You have been conditioned to believe that your value is a negotiation, when in fact, it is a declaration. This relentless outward focus has created a profound internal vacancy, a hunger that makes you predictable and, ultimately, devalued in the deep psychological calculus of human interaction. The prison is your own neediness, your own fear of being alone with yourself. But what are the real-world consequences of living within these invisible walls? How does this silent, internal mechanism of outsourced worth actually shape the world you experience every single day? The effects are more pervasive and more devastating than you can possibly imagine. This prison of outsourced worth is not a static enclosure. It is an active, insidious force that silently architects the reality you inhabit. Its consequences are not sudden or dramatic, but unfold as a slow, creeping erosion of your spirit, your power, and your very presence in the world. You do not wake up one day to find yourself invisible. You simply begin to notice that people look through you, their gaze fixed on a point somewhere beyond. In your personal relationships, this manifests as the slow-acting poison of predictability. Your love, your time, your energy, because they are freely and consistently given, are subconsciously recategorized from precious gifts into reliable utilities. You become the bedrock, the foundation, the ever-present constant. And while this may sound like a position of strength, in the strange economy of human emotion, it is a role devoid of dynamism. You are loved, perhaps, but you are not desired. You are appreciated, but you are not craved. This is the subtle horror of hedonic adaptation. Your grandest gestures of yesterday become the mundane expectations of today. The brain adapts to your constant presence, your unwavering support, and it ceases to register them with the same emotional intensity. You become emotional wallpaper, a comforting but ultimately overlooked part of the scenery. You host the party, but no one is truly there to see you. You give the advice, but no one asks how you are doing. You become a ghost at your own feast, your essence slowly fading as your function takes precedence. Professionally, the consequences are just as stark, though often masked by the language of corporate praise. You are called reliable, a team player, dependable. But these are often consolation prizes for the overlooked. Your constant availability, your eagerness to please, your reluctance to create friction, these traits prevent you from being perceived as a leader. Leadership requires a degree of unpredictability, a willingness to challenge, to stand apart from the consensus. It requires a vision that is internally generated, not crowdsourced. By being endlessly attainable, you signal that your time is not scarce, that your boundaries are porous, and that your conviction can be swayed. You become the diligent worker who props up the visionary, the one who executes the plan but never authors it. Your ideas, whispered in a collaborative meeting, are later trumpeted by a more assertive voice and met with an applause you feel you deserved but cannot claim. You hit a glass ceiling made not of institutional bias, but of the perceptions you yourself have cultivated. The true horror is that your own mind conspires against you in this process, thanks to deeply embedded cognitive biases. Your brain operates on heuristics, mental shortcuts that, while efficient, often lead you astray. The scarcity heuristic is one of the most powerful. We instinctively assign greater value to that which is rare or difficult to obtain. When you make yourself perpetually available, you are fighting a losing battle against the very wiring of the human brain. You are signaling abundance in a system that is programmed to prize scarcity. Furthermore, your actions are neurologically disarming the very circuits of attraction you wish to engage. The brain's reward system, governed by dopamine, is far more stimulated by intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable pattern of reward and absence, than by consistent reward. The thrill is in the chase, the anticipation, the uncertainty. The person who is sometimes available and sometimes not whose attention must be earned and re-earned, creates a powerful dopamine loop in others. The person who is always there offers no such neurological excitement. Their predictability flattens the emotional landscape, turning a potential adventure into a mapped and sterile territory. This is the unseen trap. You are playing a game by a set of rules that guarantees your loss, a game propped up by a culture that preaches niceness and accommodation while secretly idolizing independence and strength. Society conditions you to be a resource to be mined, all while selling you an endless stream of products to fill the void created by your own self-abandonment. The consequences are therefore not just a series of disappointing outcomes in your love life or career. The ultimate consequence is a profound spiritual disenfranchisement. It is the slow erasure of your own sovereignty. You live a life in response to others, your days dictated by their needs, your emotions held hostage by their reactions. A quiet, gnawing resentment begins to build within you, a bitterness toward those who take you for granted, and a deeper, more painful bitterness toward yourself for allowing it to happen. You are trapped, and the most terrifying part is, you are both the prisoner and the guard. The realization dawns that this is not just a pattern of behavior. It is a way of dying while you are still alive. And from the depths of this realization, a new, dangerous, and utterly necessary question begins to form. What would it mean to start a rebellion? The rebellion you seek does not begin with a change in strategy, but with a revolution in spirit. It is not about learning a new set of rules to play the same old game. It is about flipping the entire table and walking away. The first act of this rebellion is a quiet, internal, and cataclysmic declaration. My sense of self is no longer open for public negotiation. This is the moment you stop looking for your reflection in the fractured mirrors of others and decide to become your own source of light. You must understand that unattainability is not a tactic you employ, but a state of being you inhabit once you have reclaimed your own sovereign territory. The path to this state is deeply counterintuitive. It is not about cultivating aloofness or feigning disinterest. Such tricks are merely the old prison repainted. The true rebellion lies in shifting from being less available to being more occupied, not with trivial distractions, but with a mission of your own making. Your life must become a project of such profound importance to you that the approval or disapproval of others becomes secondary, a distant noise rather than a commanding voice. Think of a planet forming in the cosmos. It does not attract moons by chasing them. It attracts them by developing its own mass, its own core, its own gravitational field. Your mission, be it mastering a skill, building a business, creating art, or pursuing knowledge, is the raw material of your internal gravity. When you are consumed by a purpose greater than yourself, your time and attention become genuinely scarce, not artificially withheld. This is the difference between playing hard to get and being hard to get. The former is a sign of weakness. The latter is a testament to your power. To walk this path is to join a silent lineage of rebels who understood this truth. The Stoic philosophers were masters of this internal revolution. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor ruling the known world, spent his nights writing not about conquest, but about the fortification of his inner citadel, a fortress of the mind impervious to external opinion, fortune, or fate. He understood that true power was not the ability to command legions, but the ability to command oneself. Your rebellion begins by building your own inner citadel. You do this by practicing what might be called sacred selfishness, the radical act of prioritizing your own mental, emotional, and spiritual health as the non-negotiable foundation of your existence. You begin an audit of your attention, recognizing it as your most precious currency. You stop giving it away to those who have not earned it and invest it in yourself. This requires you to master the art of indifference to outcomes you cannot control. You learn to pour your soul into your work, your relationships, your actions, but you release your attachment to the results. Whether you receive the promotion, the affection, or the applause is no longer the measure of your worth. The measure becomes the integrity of your effort, the alignment of your actions with your own values. This detachment is not coldness, it is freedom. When your self-esteem is not on the line with every interaction, you can act with a clarity and confidence that is deeply compelling. You can say no without the crippling fear of disapproval because your yes to yourself is more important. Each no to that which drains you is a foundational brick in the wall of your citadel. Consider Michelangelo, who forced popes and princes to wait, not out of arrogance, but because he was in service to a higher master. The vision locked within the marble. His unattainability was a byproduct of his devotion. He was not ignoring the world. He was creating a new one. This is your task. Find the marble. Find the vision that consumes you. It could be a physical craft, an intellectual pursuit, or a spiritual journey. Pour your energy into it. Let it become the organizing principle of your life. As you do this, something miraculous begins to happen. Your frantic, outward-seeking energy turns inward, solidifying into a core of self-possession. You stop broadcasting neediness and begin to radiate purpose. People will feel this shift before they can articulate it. Your presence will have a new weight, a new resonance. You have stopped being a petitioner, asking for a seat at the table. You have begun to build your own. This is the heart of the rebellion. It is the arduous, glorious work of becoming the author of your own existence. But as you build this new reality, you will discover that breaking free from the prison of others' opinions reveals an even deeper truth, a final realization about the very nature of power and desire itself. As the walls of your inner citadel rise and the noise of the world begins to fade, you are finally able to hear the one voice that has been drowned out for a lifetime, your own. It is here, in the stillness of your own sovereign space, that the final, most powerful realization dawns. It is a truth so simple and yet so profound that it rearranges your entire perception of reality. The ultimate truth is this: the goal was never to become unattainable to others. It was to become completely and utterly attainable to yourself. This is the paradigm shift that changes everything. The entire chase, the painful calculus of desire and approval, was based on a flawed premise. You thought power lay in managing the perceptions of others, in creating a sense of scarcity that would make you valuable in their eyes. But you were looking at the shadow, not the source. The magnetic, compelling, unattainable quality you have been seeking is not, and has never been, a function of distance or aloofness. It is the natural radiance of a soul that has come home to itself. It is the gravitational field generated by a person who has achieved self-union, who has bridged the chasm between the mask they wear and the truth of who they are. People are not drawn to your absence. They are drawn to the coherence of your presence. They are mesmerized by the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who no longer needs anything from them. In a world of fragmented people, desperately seeking their missing pieces in the validation of others, a whole person is a breathtaking and revolutionary sight. You finally understand that all your past struggles, the gnawing anxiety, the bitter resentment, the feeling of being perpetually overlooked, were the symptoms of a single, core affliction: self-abandonment. You were a kingdom without a ruler, an empty throne, and you were begging passers-by to come in and give you a sense of purpose. The rebellion was the act of finally claiming that throne for yourself. And here lies the great and beautiful paradox. The moment you truly need nothing from anyone is the moment you can form the deepest, most authentic connections. Your relationships cease to be covert transactions for validation. You no longer enter a room wondering what you can get, but what you can give from a place of genuine fullness. You can love more purely because your love is not contaminated by the fear of loss. You can listen more deeply because you are not waiting for your turn to speak, to prove your worth. You become a sanctuary for others rather than a seeker. Your unattainability is not that you are out of reach, but that your core cannot be touched or diminished by the whims of the world. Like a deep ocean, the surface may be stirred by winds, but the depths remain profoundly, powerfully still. This is the ultimate freedom. It is the state the Zen masters called Wu Wei, or effortless action. You stop striving, struggling, and resisting. Your actions begin to flow from your authentic center, creating powerful effects without a sense of draining effort. You are no longer fighting the current of social dynamics. You have become the current. Life ceases to be a battle for worthiness and becomes a canvas for expression. Your identity is no longer a fragile thing to be defended, but a powerful force to be wielded in service of your purpose. So look away from the world and its endless, hungry ghosts. The answer you have been seeking is not in their eyes. It is not in their approval. It is not in conquering their desire. The final journey is not outward, but inward. It is the journey back to the abandoned throne room of your own soul. The most powerful person in the world is not the one who is desired by all, but the one who is so profoundly at one with themselves that they have forgotten to even ask if they are desired. They do not need the world's light, for they have become a star. And the universe, in its infinite wisdom, always, eventually, turns towards the light. The real question was never, how do I make them want me? The real question, the only one that has ever mattered, is, what will I do now that I am finally, truly, my own?